without further ado, very excited about our next guest. I actually consider him a hero to our community, also to other lawyers, and really someone who I think, if you're talking about a long, strange trip, I think he's been through that as well in this court system here. But please welcome to the program John Ter Beek of the one and only Michigan Supreme Court ruling of Ter Beek versus Wyoming. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I keep hearing an echo.
We should warn everybody. It starts out a little bit. It should go away. If it gets annoying, we can have you call back in. But I do understand that it will.
It is the first caller echo. Unfortunately, it should go away after a few more sentences. I apologize for that.
Chad, blame Chad.
Okay. I was the victor in the Supreme Court case. Ter Beek versus Wyoming, and probably should have gone that far. But because I went to the city council meeting and warned them that I would sue if they did not withdraw that motion for an ordinance, and they didn't withdraw it. They were basically very, very pompous about it. They said, "Well, we're going to we're the city council, and we're going to do it anyway." So, anyway, I won in the Supreme Court, but before that happened, I lost in the circuit court. I had this pinhead by the name of Judge Lieber, and I lost in the circuit court, so we appealed it to the appellate, 3-judge panel of the appellate court, and we won 3-0. And from there, they appealed it to the Supreme Court, and we won 7 votes to nothing. So
I can add that up. That means that after the pinhead ruling and the local anti-recognizing the state law initiative, a law that had more votes than any other law in the history of Michigan elections, that from that point in time, once you got out of your local community, 10-0, every judge that looked at it voted in favor, unequivocally.
Yes, except for the circuit court in Grand Rapids. I had another pinhead of a judge that once I was there on behalf of a client that got caught for some marijuana, and he was there for sentencing, and I said, well, basically it's a crime without a victim. And he said, oh no. He said, this judge says, I've seen people killed over an ounce of marijuana in this court. And I'm thinking, well, then why don't we close down all the jewelry stores, all the bars, close down everything that brings on crime. So marijuana would be the least of that, So I don't understand where people's heads are at. I think that they basically are against marijuana because their parents were, and they're against marijuana because their parents were. And nobody even has the intellectual wherewithal to figure out that this stuff came from Hearst, who is a leading competitor in the paper industry with the hemp industry. So he took his yellow rag of a newspaper, San Francisco Chronicle, and he just bird-dogged marijuana by saying that, the minorities are taking it, and then they're raping and killing white women, and that's how the whole shebang got as far as it did. So people believe that crap, and I just don't understand why it's still against the law in this day and age.
And you mentioned something, and I find myself on this issue using these words to describe it, and also some of the ways in which the courts have ruled, and even in your specific case, how some of these city attorneys have interpreted this unequivocal and very clearly unanimous opinion, but that's finding like a lot of intellectual dishonesty, And I'll give you a couple examples. The first time through, and I don't know, it was probably around the time where you brought the first challenge, and I got to tell you, I don't know if you heard that, I'm a lawyer as well. I practice criminal law, and I've, been doing nothing but medical marijuana these 5 or 6 years, and it's been nice as a lawyer to be in a new developing field, and a lot of lawyers don't get to say that they litigate new issues. Lawyers are born and die, and argue the same crap that other lawyers argued, and it's all the same. But it is a unique time, and I do think that his law is meaningful. But I still, despite what it was clearly read to, how I read it, plain reading of it, the way in which I interpreted it, its purpose and cause, there was such a resistance by the institutions, by the political structure. And if you recall early on, before the first People versus Larry King and Kolinek and Balsma, there was an argument that there was no defense, that there was no affirmative defense. Like if your door was, not locked in and closed, you're out of the act and you got to suck it up and be a manufacturer of marijuana. And that was so intellectually dishonest. And of course, the Supreme Court unanimously said, "You got to be kidding us! This is the crap that's going on there. We have to straighten this out." And the same kind of situation happened in your case. I mean, it was just totally dishonest. And after the Court of Appeals was unanimous about it, it was very clear. I don't know how they can, the Court of Appeals, it wasn't even a logical, it wasn't really a logical step outside of between the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. But now we have the same intellectual dishonesty where some of these cities and townships, and I know Jamie, who got you on the show, discussed with you how they're using this footnote 9 as some refuge to create some regulations that are limiting or restricting those specific protections under Section 4. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that it's the anti-marijuana people use anything they can to make it look bad. I've got a case myself right now where I am representing a dispensary, and I've been reading up on Kalanick and Carruthers and McQueen and those cases, and it doesn't give me a lot of hope. I'm hoping to get it kicked on the search warrant and the entrapment, because the state cop or the county cop, she wouldn't sell to him at first, and he comes back and tries to talk her into it. Second or third time, he talks her into it, and then he lowers the boom on her. But, I think that John Law will use anything they can lay their hands on to defeat the medical marijuana. It was passed by 63% of the people. Now, why don't they just succumb to the will of the people? Well, they won't, They're going to fight it until kingdom come. I guess I don't understand it. It's not like California, where it's been well settled for years that legal pot is here to stay, or at least medical marijuana is here to stay. And but our state is so broke, you'd think these idiots would have the wherewithal to tax the stuff, not just spend money to criminalize. And for example, the case I'm working on right now with the dispensary, before they even had a chance to run the preliminary hearing, they confiscated everything, confiscated her truck, got it all wet inside, it grew mold inside, and they sold all the stuff, 20, 21 days later, before I was involved, and they're getting away with it. It's like legal theft,
Well, I've always said that it's challenging to have any kind of reform in cannabis or, drug war if you're not going to have some reform about forfeiture. Because what I found is, albeit, maybe some levels of, the law enforcement community, like local police, even some of the sheriff's departments, have gotten a different perception of it. And there is even, I sense a little bit of a difference. And I do hear occasionally, I always joke, like, lawyers don't get the call like, hey, Mr. Komorn and Mr. Ter Beek, I just had a great law enforcement encounter. I was, the police showed up at my house, they wanted to search, I let them in, I, showed them my car, they searched and they left, it was fantastic. Or I was driving and I had, 2.6 ounces and I didn't have it in my trunk, but they still let me go anyways because they said, go ahead, we love patience. Like, I don't hear that stuff. I always hear, like, the net officers that, like, find the key that opens the grow room, on a table in a bedroom that was maybe accessible to the wife, who may have accessibility to the grow room, and therefore it's not locked and enclosed, and all this behavior is a felony. Who would come up with that stuff? But while there has been some progress in some communities and some levels of law enforcement, I still think there's this other element, which is kind of what you were alluding to, the narcotics enforcement teams, the drug enforcement officers who are fed by forfeiture proceeds. That's the way they do it. Their entire budget is fed by their proceeds.
That's right.
And met by dollar for dollar by the DEA or the federal government that matches them. So how do you equate the two? What is their incentive to let somebody go? What's their incentive to find somebody in compliance with Section 4 and immune? None.
I think that if they do that, then they're going to be screwing themselves out of a big profit. And it's like the old business adage, if you ain't growing, you're dying. And this is in western Michigan, where they completely go on what the church says, not what's right or what's wrong. They just like my case, started out with a bunch of these church-going people that didn't understand the separation of church and state powers, and they will not give up their money because some of them will lose jobs and actually have to make an honest living. So, I don't know. I could not fathom any possible reason why, other than the fact that they want to feed themselves. Why it's run this way.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. So you're dealing with, and again, every community is different. We had a gentleman on last week from, because we were talking about a week, and where prosecutor Cassandra Morris.
Oh, Mayo.
In Mayo. Anyways, I had some weird interactions up there, and this other person from that side of the state called in and actually sent some video about and posted some video about some really bizarre interactions about moratoriums in his community. No explanations, just, local government doing whatever they want, not accountable to anyone, never being called out, and no one having any interest really. But I mean, that's the fascinating part about your story, I think, is that first of all, I mean, you sound like a person that I know what your answer would be, but how much of a impact, or concern did you have of the fact that you were a lawyer? Did that impact, because I know obviously you were claiming, your patient status and your right to be able to grow marijuana as a patient, if I understand. And I mean, how much time did you spend contemplating that?
Well, I didn't spend any time contemplating that at all because I just was going to go. Somebody had to do it, and everybody else was afraid to, and people that knew me said, "Aren't you afraid that the cops are going to raid your place?" And I said, "Let them come, I'll just call up the news," and they did not want to hear from the news media by the time this case was done, because they were made fools of. Now, I had read about a decision out of Lansing, People versus Dewey, with Judge Clark, And he really hit the nail on the head. It's too bad that it can't be used as precedent. It can be used, however, as persuasive.
You're talking
but
about.
It's,
well, no, I know what you're talking about, but you're talking about the whole lenity arguments of ex post facto and, you know, the confusion, not ignorance of the law, but, you know, different applications and not fair due process. That's the gist. I know what you're talking about. That was argued in a couple other jurisdictions. In fact, the Blue Water Dispensary out of St. Clair County, Judge Cynthia Lane issued an opinion. I know the lawyers around that one. But what you may or may not know is that today was a big day. I want to get your thoughts on this. You know, the Michigan Supreme Court issued a number of, at least, rulings, one of which was they denied leave to appeal in a case that's been known as clinical relief, which had prevailed in the Oakland County Circuit Court under that same theory, which you referenced out of Lansing and I referenced out of St. Clair County, the due process, ex post facto, and like lenity. You know, that you know, deference should be given to the layperson's interpretation, especially because it's a voter initiative. They won at the trial court. They got reversed at the Court of Appeals, and they, you know, requested leave to appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court and denied. So, you know, I agree with you. In fact, that issue just came up in another case that we had where a police officer was on the stand and clearly exclaimed that he had no idea anymore about how to deal with usable or unusable material and said, your guess is as good as mine. And I said, but you arrested him because you said all this stuff's not usable. So how, if you don't know what the answer is, how can you hold the defendant accountable and arrest him when you can't even articulate what it is that he's doing wrong, you know? So, but that is an interesting issue, and I don't know if you heard of, and I'd be curious to hear your other opinions. My law firm, Stuart Friedman, who wrote the opinion, and Neil Rockheim were representing Earl Carruthers in this Medable case, which we had requested leave to appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court, and today they ruled no thank you. I think that was politically motivated because they are aware that the legislature is addressing, this bill 5104 that went through the House, and it is, you know, I mean, maybe you'll agree with me with this, that to deal with the Medable bill, there needs to be a legislative solution. That what we're working with the Act itself, would be very difficult to create protections, you know, other than just a weight of 2.5 of something. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on that?
There's 7241 also. It'll never get through as long as Randy Richardville is in office, because I think he must be owned by Big Pharma, because he won't even let the Senate, let the people decide the issue, because he won't put it up. He's a House Majority Leader, and they need to boot him from office, I think. And now, what do I think about the case being overruled today, or what case was that?
The Carruthers case.
Yeah.
Oh, the Carruthers case. Oh, they said they would not hear it, huh?
Right, but I think it's fair to say that I don't know. Maybe you'll agree with me. I mean, when I looked at that case, I envisioned myself before the Michigan Supreme Court and them saying, "Counsel, stop fighting with the prosecutor. Give us a workable solution. You know, working within the Act." Okay, clearly, all right. You know, I mean, there's 10,000 things that are wrong with that opinion. I mean, you know, just by, you know, the unmeasurable, highly potent is one of the, you know, the unmeasurable but highly potent brownies. That's one of the phrases they use. But moving besides that, you know, the weights and measures that they were looking for, like how much can somebody possess, you know, whatever their logic was, which is insane and silly and stupid, you know. But what could you come up with from the Act itself? You're still going to be working with weights that are limited only to 2.5, 5, you know, 7.5, 10, 12, and 15 ounces. And, you know, you see in the bill that the legislature is, you know, the 5104, you know, uses a whole other measuring system that the Supreme Court could never just come up with. That's something that would be would have to have been legislatively created. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I kind of do. That's another thing about Western Michigan. They never grant the person the right to argue Section 8, the affirmative defense, under the Medical Marijuana Act, because if they did, then the police would not win. And Section 8 is much broader than Section 4.
Well, let me ask
Section
you this,
4
because I've had some success arguing Section 8, and I do believe, as you said, it is one of the. I mean, it's clearly not the way things are supposed to be. I think that while I do appreciate many things the Supreme Court has done, I think in some ways they could have made Section 4 stronger. When they had opportunities to expand the protections, they've limited them. But under all circumstances, they've remained, generally speaking, open to try, the law as far as to allowing for jury trials on medical marijuana issues. And the holding in People versus Anderson, which sets out the standard of which that evidence you're hearing of Section 8 is supposed to be evaluated by not weighing the evidence and not judging the credibility of the witnesses, suggests that almost everything should get to the jury. Now, I'm troubled to hear, and I'm curious to hear why, your court's rulings, the trial courts are. What is the issue that they take about Section 8 and denying them? But I will say that I'm aware of this Hartwick and Tuttle case, which put extreme and irrational, expectations on the physician for prong 1 and prong 2. What are the reasons that the courts are denying that, proceeding with Section 8?
They don't give a reason. They just deny it. They very few have ever written an opinion on it. They just deny it. Around here, they don't. They're not required to write an opinion as to why they approve or deny something. Judge Lieber, who ruled against me in the first at the circuit court level, did write an opinion, but it was all wrong. He showed how little about the law he knew, and of course, then again, I had 10 judges, appellate court justices, rule against him, so that should tell him something,
Oh, yeah.
So it tells me he's a rotten judge. But I'm just about retirement age. I had a little bit of a stroke last year, so I was kind of getting out of the law game, but certain things have drawn me back in. It's like The Godfather when he says, they
tried to get out.
Yeah, try to get out, but they draw me back. It's kind of like it is with me, and most of my marijuana cases right now are marijuana cases, and it's so stupid. I don't think they really have a reason. They're just saying, well, I've got a status conference, and then from that they're going to set up a conference with the exclusionary rule and the Section 8 defenses, and I'll find out from my own case what the judge thinks, because I'm going to ask for a written opinion. What the guy's name? Overton. They didn't really write an opinion on him. He was the biggest one here so far.
Overholt. Is that his name?
Dave Overholt, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that was,
Overholt.
We were talking about right. We were talking about this a little bit before, and I just want to expand it a little bit. I agree with you. I mean, there's a number of ways in which we're going to bring about medical marijuana reform and the reform of prohibition in general. I know as a lawyer activist, this discussion takes place amongst lawyers. Like if every individual that's charged with a marijuana case, whether they're guilty, whether they don't have a defense, or they do have a defense, goes to trial, the system would fall apart because there's so many cases and it makes up so much of the docket that they just simply couldn't do it. Of course, as lawyers, we know we can't advise our clients for the sake of the greater good of the world, you should take this advice and go to trial and lose, and but or try to win without a defense. You have to give the advice of what's best for the client. But I do, and you were talking about this, agree that by utilizing the defense, if it's available, and letting juries see and understand the ridiculousness of prosecutors' desires in calling this crimes. And I always joke, when the juries get back to deliberate, they'll shut the door and they'll look at each other and say, "Didn't we pass a law back in like 2008 or 2009?"
Yeah, that's right. And they call it jury nullification, and that's what I'm going to try to do. I don't care how they come out.
Right.
I'm going to take mine to trial and hope for a jury nullification. And
that's I kind of want to describe like what I'm getting from your whole theory of this. It's like this small town messed with you and they were breaking the law and someone had to do something. You stepped forward because they were wrong and needed to be told so, and no one else could do it. And you heroically stepped forward and carried this torch of righteousness of many principles that are like the core of our our culture, of our democracy. That the law should matter and you can't abrogate it. And I don't care what where you think you get your authority from. It comes from state law and you can't abrogate that. And then you thought that was enough, they would say. And no, they're still fucking with you, and you got to come back and mess with them again. I love it. It's a great spirit, and it sounds like they've got quite a fight that they're looking at here.
I can quote you a couple of. The jury has power to bring a verdict in the teeth of both law and fact. That was said by Oliver Wendell Holmes, Chief Justice, and a couple other ones. The jury has a right to judge both the law as well as fact and controversy. That was written by John Jay. Of course, any judge nowadays will tell you, well, the judge has the law and the jury has the facts, but I think that if we went back to that kind of thinking, what they're talking about is jury nullification. And, of course, I can't mention that in my trial. I stay away from those words. But that's what I'm hoping will happen.
Because they're not letting you argue medical marijuana. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, and I got to try to get somehow the notion if the law doesn't rule against it, then it must be legal. And the law is silent on the medical marijuana dispensaries. But what are you supposed to do? Support the Mexican mafia if they don't allow any dispensaries?
What's troubling to me? The idea that you're not going to be able, I don't know if they've gone this far, but in a lot of these cases where they deny the defense, your client should still be able to get on the witness stand and say why they did what they did, what their mens rea was in terms of their intent, why they were possessing it. And you may not be able to argue to the jury, find my client not guilty because of medical marijuana, but you can say, they haven't proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt. You can clearly see that. You know what I'm talking about. Wink, 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 wink. This is
that's right.
But because in some of the jurisdictions, they've created fantasy facts. Where you can't talk about things that really happen. You have to kind of come up with a new script. So nobody says the word medical marijuana card or something like that. I mean, it's kind of that point, which to me was just I don't know. That's one to bring you back into the fight, I would say.
Well, I'm in the middle of this brief, and I'll probably have that finished by within a week or so. And I'm citing all those cases. Carruthers just got defeated today. Then, huh?
One of the things about the Carruthers case is they seem to suggest that the item that's not able to be possessed is because it is an extraction. It is not part of the plant. And the idea being that if like the distinction of what falls out of the protected category and in the protected category is such a slight and something that I would suggest that the prosecutor can't delineate. Is the extraction of the material, was it taken, with parts of the plant? Because if it is, they can't say it's non-usable marijuana. But
well, that was, I think, the Carruthers case that said that the stuff they had in the brownies and other medibles, which are illegal and they shouldn't be, but we're never going to get anywhere with this Randy Richardville. Anything that might assist the medical marijuana community, he won't even let it get to the full Senate.
Well, some of the activists here within the studio here, we're at a fundraiser for him. I'm outing them right now about that, so you know who they were that support. No, just kidding.
None of the activists in the studio were at that fundraiser.
But they report.
We are going to hear about it.
But where there was reports on it, you got to play the game with the justification, and people went and participated. And I think the word on the street was, someone correct me if I'm wrong, that he promised by the end of July, August, that it would be put to a vote at the Senate. However, there were going to be many, many changes. They're going to require it, not many, but changes. They're going to require it to go back to the House for another vote. Am I correct about it? If someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, but that's all standard stuff. Whenever they make changes, and changes have already been agreed to on the bill to satisfy the food service people and for a couple of other procedural things. So it would have to go back to the House for a confirmation vote anyway. And I believe the reports we received did not include the word promise, because I'm pretty sure Randy's veteran enough to not make promises, but I'm sure he gave heavy suggestions.
Well, you could say that the community...
Maybe they'll have to have a joint conference.
Love it.
Between the House and the Senate, yes. Where they all sit down, roll up a couple, and smoke a few joints.
I bet there's some people in the House and the Senate that probably do that. I think so.
Sure, of course there are.
Yeah, I went to college.
Well, when I went to college, everybody did it. Except for Clinton, he inhaled, but he smoked it, but he didn't inhale. Now, if you want to believe that shit, it's oops, I shouldn't have said that word. I'm on the radio, so. But anyway,
at least Obama was honest about his Choom Gang stuff.
I'm sure that he did a little whitey up his nostrils and all kinds of stuff.
Hey, listen, I'd like to take a second here to thank you very much for the speech that you gave at the Hash Bash as well. It was very inspirational, and I know Jamie looked it up. There's a Vimeo site that has all of the Hash Bash speeches on there, and people should really tune in and check out what you had to say. It was very motivational, very inspiring. Just as candid.
Is that on YouTube? Would that be on YouTube, right? What?
It's on Vimeo. I think what we'll do is we'll have our producer and on-air special wizard Jamie Lowell send you the link to your video so that you can check that out.
Okay, and I would like to actually converse with you guys. You have my phone number, right?
Yes,
we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, converse with you guys about the brief that I'm writing right now. I mean, there's 2-3 heads are better than one, so.
Absolutely on board with you there. Thank you very much for your work. I live in one of the communities that was affected by the Wyoming type ordinance. I live in Birmingham, and
that was one of the big ones.
I thank you so much for your work on this. You are a true hero to the community. And I think that Birmingham is one of the few communities that has actually acknowledged that their ordinance is not in effect anymore, specifically because of your work at the Supreme Court. And again,
if you hear of any communities that would deny that, let me know. I'll take a ride down there.
Well, we have, as we were talking about earlier, so we'll take a ride with you.
Well, listen,
okay.
as I said, I too see you as a hero on a lot of levels, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And you were talking to Chad. He was referencing the Birmingham. But call me, call my office. I'll be more than happy to help or assist in any of the needs that you may have for facilitating.
Okay, what's your name? What's your
Komorn, Michael Komorn, Komorn.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you a call maybe tomorrow afternoon, and we'll set up a time this week, and we can talk about it.
Perfect. Excellent.
Right on.
All right. So, again, thank you very much for coming on the show. I'd love to have you back on and get your thoughts on this. I mean, I think it's refreshing to hear, of course, the lawyer perspective, but just someone that's seen it all in the, as we described earlier, the lack of intellectual honesty, But thank you. I know everyone here. Go ahead.
Well, tell the powers that be I'd like to speak in front of next year's HASFAS too.
We sure will.
We'll make sure they know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, have a great night. We look forward to talking to you.
Thanks for calling in.
All right.
Don't let your meatloaf. Okay, bye.
Goodbye.
Well, from implying Obama's cocaine use to not letting your meatloaf. You have to love John Ter Beek. What a guy.
Well, that was a very special moment because I know I've been looking forward to talking to him, and just the way the case went, and after talking about it, I think I expected him to be like
really hit it out of the park.
Yeah, what a great, really, but truly like heroic. I mean, some of the absolute nonsense that was going on. It's true. Some of these cases, that's how I feel, unfortunately, and someone's got to do it. If you don't, it's just going to be like tragedy. Anyways,
one thing is on the west side of the state, it's much harder too, because I know in the southeast Michigan communities that we live in, it's difficult. But out west, as he mentioned, with the religious influence, it's got to be so much worse. And to be a single guy trying to ride this out on your own, I'm sure he put up with an awful lot of ridicule and inappropriateness.
After losing at the circuit court.
For sure, and then sticking with it and going to it. And I'm sure that the newspapers probably weren't very kind until he won either. So, ballsy, man. That guy's got brass ones, I'll tell you.
You know what, I'll tell you, I didn't mention this, but as it turns out, his whole story adequately falls under the title of tonight's show, which was, I was right, you were wrong.
Nice.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
Show.
I see David. David, I am not doing a rant on Planet Green Juice tonight. In the queue, we're going to come back with him and hear his thoughts on. And Robin Schneider should be around soon. I'm looking for. We'll see. We're going to take a quick break and be back with more exciting cannabis reform and medical cannabis discussions right after this. You'll listen to Planet Green Juice. Call number is 1-347-326-9626, and we'll be right back.